If you ask Hillary, she stands up for the average man, the interests of the everyday American. If you ask her small dollar donors, she steals from them. Wells Fargo's fraud department said it receives up to 100 calls a day from Clinton's poorest supporters, claiming they've been repeatedly overcharged after agreeing to make a one-time small dollar donation. The bank claims it's forced to refund between $700 and $1,200 a day to customers every single day. Take a look.
Oh, what the hell? I'll give them 25 bucks.
A one-time deal, or so she thought, until the credit card statement arrived.
Yeah, they took out $100 more than what I donated.
119.
Yeah, 119.
The Mars disputed the charges on the card and wanted to make sure there were no more, which led to 3 days of dialing, trying to get someone, anyone at Hillary for America to pick up.
25 calls later, I finally got through.
Roger says the Hillary rep told him the unauthorized charges would be canceled and all future billings stopped.
Fast forward a month later.
The next credit statement arrives, and sure as a politician will find a camera, there they were. 2 more $25 charges.
Joining me now is former United States diplomat Jim Jatras. Jim, hi, how are you?
Hi, Liz. Great to be here. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. This is a very strange story. It appears that Hillary Clinton is stealing from her smallest donors here. What's going on? Is this just an error? Is this intentional?
Well, let's look at the positive side. For those calling her low energy or sick, she's clearly upping her game from lying to stealing. Just think of the access these people will get to the Clinton White House for their involuntary pay-to-play donations. No, seriously, I think what's going on here is that this has to be deliberate. If you look at the accounts of what is happening here, these are not just some kind of electronic glitch where the same donation gets taken out multiple times. They're different amounts, and they're all carefully under $100, so it doesn't set off the alarm bells in the bank's fraud system. So it's actually up to the consumer to notice it and then call the bank and try to figure it out.
Right. It's very strange. This might be even the sketchiest part of it all, aside from the fact that Hillary's stealing from people. But anytime that there's a charge over $100, it's automatically investigated by the fraud department at Wells Fargo, at that bank. But every one of these charges, they range from $20 to $80. But the culmination, the total of all of the charges are always under $100, so that there's nothing, that would be pinged as being fraudulent here. Jim, why isn't this a huge story? If Donald Trump had done the same thing, he'd practically be hanged for it.
And you're right, and in fact, as far as I know, nobody else has done this. I haven't heard these allegations about Bernie and his famous $27 average contributions. It seems to be unique to the Hillary Clinton campaign. Now, maybe it's because it's a new story and other people haven't picked it up, or maybe we'll get the usual Clinton pass, where something, if anybody else had done it, it would be literally a federal case. But if she does it, oh, well, nothing to see here, folks. Let's move on.
Right, or maybe it just pales in comparison. $25 million she accepted from the Saudi Arabian regime, but steal $25 from an 81-year-old grandmother in Minnesota, that's hardly comparative. That's hardly enough to even make us look up. But this kind of scheme, other people have used this kind of scheme before, but not politicians. This is the type of scheme used by pornography companies. They're notorious for using this type of scheme. But no calls have been made to this bank by Donald Trump supporters. And the sad thing, I think, Jim, is that all these people, the $700 to $1,200 a day that Wells Fargo is having to refund to these people, those are only the people who are looking at their bills and noticing this.
Exactly right. And I think really comes down to, and I hope the rest of the media will pick this up, is that somebody is doing this. This is not happening because of an electronic glitch. Somebody or some somebodies inside the Hillary Clinton outfit are doing this, and I think doing it deliberately. And we need to find out who those individuals are.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. Well, you're going to love this transition to a new topic, but speaking of people with mental health disorders, the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals last Thursday, just last week, said that mental health bans on gun ownership, which is usually a bipartisan thing, both sides agree on, that actually might be a violation of the Second Amendment. Jim, what are your thoughts on this?
You know, Liz, I wish I had a good answer for this. I mean, if you look at Sandy Hook, you look at Virginia Tech, you look at some of these really horrendous issues with mass shooters, liberals are very quick to blame the gun, but in almost every one of these cases, you're talking about a very mentally disturbed individual. Nobody that I know wants people who hear voices in their head saying kill people to be running around with a gun. But then where do you draw the line? What's the process going to be if somebody has ever been institutionalized? How about if anybody's ever seen a shrink? How about if anybody's even just talked to a counselor about his or her problem, or maybe told somebody, gee, you know, I feel kind of depressed? Is that going to result in their being stripped away for their constitutional right for the rest of their life based on a subjective judgment of a doctor or maybe even a bureaucrat?
Right, and I think that's what this case is actually based off of, a situation that's similar to what you just described. And this case was related to a man by the name of Clifford Tyler. He failed a background check in 2011, I believe it was, because at one point in 1986, he was committed to a mental institution. He'd just gone through a divorce. He depleted his finances, and his daughters actually committed him because they were afraid that he was a threat to himself. But he's saying, you know, that he's in fine mental health at this point, that he shouldn't be barred from buying a firearm for the rest of his life because of that one thing. But another thing that I have an issue here, with, Jim, is the potential for abuse here. When something is as subjective as a mental health evaluation is, because every case is different. Any mental health professional will tell you that. What about the opportunity for abuse? Judges or mental health professionals who could be bought off by liberals who wanted to deny certain people their right to bear arms.
That's right. And in principle, I would hope there would be some kind of a process here with a statute with very clear criteria indicating an imminent danger of violence, somebody who is presently prone to committing a violent act, and maybe you could have some kind of a process that would identify such people and allow then for somebody to then introduce evidence that they were no longer in that state. But I agree with you, Liz. It would be so subject to abuse by, let's face it, people in the bureaucracy and in the mental health community, the professionals, who will take an opportunity to basically get rid of somebody's gun rights because they don't like guns. And that doesn't mean we want crazy people running around with guns, but I don't know how you structure a process that would not be subject to abuse.
Right, I'm not sure, and I guess we're going to see as this case continues to make its way through the appeals process. Jim, we're out of time, but thank you so much for being here. It's always great to talk to you. Our next tipping point with Mia DeGroff is Sugargate. Not sure what that is? Stick around and find out.